But the issue I have is that why is it more pleasing for people to think what do we call this thing? Liberalism is more interesting than, let's say, pragmatic pluralism. I'm not even saying being conservative, but there's pragmatic pluralism, and that's how a society works. That why is it that the whole Pan-Africanism, Pan-Nigerian, let us be one Nigeria is more appealing to people's sentiments than a united Nigeria in that context? So that's what I really want to have answer to. And if there are people on this space that still think like that, like, why do you people think that's a better thing? Because if assuming we've not done it before now, and that's why we are not progressing, I'll be able to say, okay, you have an argument. What we are practicing today is one Nigeria. The only reason why you can argue that it's not one Nigeria is because we have not been able to achieve it. Why have we not been able to achieve it? Because a failed experiment. Let's do something else. Let's go along another line. Why it is difficult for people to think that way? You are doing something is not working, and you're not trying the alternative. Is something I really don't understand. So if there's anybody maybe listening and have a very good reason to why it is more appealing for you guys to keep trying something that doesn't work over something that actually we've seen it work in different places. So yeah, that's just my submission this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. So I have two answers. I have two answers, but maybe I think there may be more. So other people could also contribute to it when it's their turn to speak. Number one, I think, is Hollywood. Right. So for some very weird reasons, we look at life through the lens of America, which is actually quite interesting because America shows you what they want you to see, not necessarily what is happening there. So what we do basically is that anything that's happening, we say, oh, America does it this way, which is one of the mistakes I think we made in 1979 by copying American presidential system. It doesn't work for a country like Nigeria. The best thing it wasn't perfect, but what we had, before Iransi was actually a lot better than whatever it is that we've been practicing since then. So number one, of course, is that we tend to think America has it's the world power, so everybody should be like America. So okay, without understanding the history of America, without understanding the uniqueness or the peculiarities, please mute. Without understanding the peculiarities of America, we just say, oh, we want to be like America. My question to people that always talk about this American thing is this: would you want to be like Native Americans? Would you want to be restricted to a place called reservation just because the people who came have already taken over the entire place, and having taken over that place? In fact, let me even tell you something. We even assume this thing about, it's residents. Even that was not the way it started. In the beginning, it was very, very ethnic. And I've said this several times. The opening up of America that we see right now is not even up to 70 years. The real opening up that we see with everybody being able to flock in the way they are right now actually started in 1965, recently. Before then, it was for the people who conquered the land originally, which would be why the people who are connected to the land ancestrally are the ones who have now been put in a place they call reservation camp or reservations all over the country. Nigeria is not a settler's colony. Nigeria is made up of ancestral spaces. The people of those spaces have a right to determine how it is. Being in one nation does not mean they lose their uniqueness. And you see it in Spain, you see it, but I like to use UK a lot. I use UK intentionally because we were colonized by the UK. The UK that colonized you, they understand the fact that you have different ethnicities that make up the country, and then they structure themselves along those lines, which is what any sane person would do, because you don't want to be like a threat to the owners of the land. If you are sane, what you usually do is this: when you get to a place that's not yours, you find a way to share joy and mobe. But if you don't have sense, you go everywhere telling them that they should change things to make you happy. And you will not hear this thing from an English person, for instance, goes to Wales, and they're in the same UK. An English person cannot go to Wales and tell them that, oh, I don't like the fact that you're always speaking this language. Why not you speak English? Aren't we in the same country? Are we not United Kingdom? Nobody cares. I read from a person last week who was talking about what happened. He had a very interesting conversation with a person in Liverpool. And then he said to the person, that it was English. He was talking to the person and said, are you English people? And the person took offense. And he said, I'm not English, I'm Irish. I'm from Northern Ireland. I live in Liverpool, but I'm not English. There's pride in identity. It is those who come from a shameful background that don't care so much about what they have, that they want to throw it away to become somebody else. Meanwhile, they're telling the person to also throw it away in order to make them feel comfortable. It's because they are thieves. Number two is that a lot of people have been so mixed with people with that mindset that they think that they have to placate them. And I'll give you an example. If you have a lot of friends from the Southeast, with all due respect, most times you're going to look at them and think that they are hated, or they are being victimized, or they are being marginalized. And it's not because that's the reality, it's because that's the rhetoric you've heard over and over again. Some people erroneously think that Azikiwe's greatest achievement is Pan-Africanism. I'll tell you this, Azikiwe was not a Pan-African. He wasn't. It was just rhetoric. It was just a narrative that worked. It was fantastic branding, by the way, and I respect him for that. He knew how to brand himself. But that's not really his greatness. His greatness was actually the art of propagandizing. Azikiwe was described in 1960 as the first consummate propagandist in Nigeria, and I believe that to be true. He would combine two disparate thoughts that you would expect people not to be able to put together, but he will put those two things together and it will fit in perfectly. For instance, I've said it before, he will tell you you are superior to everybody, but he will tell you that you are the victim of everybody. He will combine those two things together and feed you with that thing. And the fact that he was able to successfully put two contrary views in the minds of an entire group, for me, I think that was his greatness. And what he did was what Achebe did. It was what Ojukwu did. It's what Nnamdi Azikiwe is doing. It's what Ekpa is doing. It's what all of them do. They will tell you are better than someone. Say I'm being unfair. You have not studied this man. I say that the things I can say, because we also want to make sure that we're not going overboard. That's the reason I don't say some things. If you study the person, forget all this part of Africa. There's a book that was published in the 1980s. Do you know what they wrote in that book? 1985, the book was published. I won't tell you the title because I've already said it here before. It went from Zik of Africa to Zik of Nigeria to Zik of Eastern region to Zik of Onitsha and then to ordinary Zik. There is nothing Pan-African about this man. Study the 1964 constitutional crisis. Study the issue between him and Kwame Nkrumah. We'll talk about that later. The point I'm trying to make is this. You can't compare Zik to Kanu. Oh, Tako, do you want to be here or do you want to Bare? The point is that rhetoric is exactly what Kanu is doing, where he will tell you that you are the greatest. And where do you find this? In a speech that was published in 1949. He gave that speech and he published it in his own newspaper, where he said that they were superior race. God has specifically or specially created the Igbo nation. That's what he said. And the plan was that God had was for them to lead the other people on the continent. Everybody else should be led by the Igbos. In that same speech, he said they were victims of marginalization, they had taxation without representation. He said all of those things. And I'm not being sarcastic. I'm not being sarcastic. The tool that Zik used is the exact same tool that Nnamdi Azikiwe uses. I'm not being sarcastic. It's in the 1949 speech at Aba. I'm not making anything up. Don't look for it online, Shao. You have to find it in books because now they've changed it online. If you find any reference to 1949 speech, that statement, you are not going to find it there. Meanwhile, if you find his own newspaper that was published in 1949, you'll see it there. Exalting his race is not the point. It's the fact that you cannot claim to be Pan-African. You know what? Give me a second, guys. Let's do something on Zik. Let me read something to you. Let me find his book. Let me find his book for you so that you understand the contradiction in Zik himself. This is not what I'm trying to talk about. I'm trying to tell you how people have internalized this thing. Kanu often copies Zik, but Zik is going on reality. Which reality? Oh, guy, I've not read. You know what? 1 second. Let me read something for. There's a book he published in 1937. Zik published this book in 1937. The book is called Renascent Africa. Take a listen to what he had to say. Emagbo, it says, social regeneration must be experienced in African society. African conventions, and like another thing is this, there's this unnecessary fascination for Africa as a whole. Nigeria is too big, but no, they want one Africa. Meanwhile, there's no one Igbo. Just take me. I don't want to say something. Let me just read. May not be like say. May just read. May you hear it. Of the present social order hinge on the continuation of the forces of man's inhumanity to man. Let the Renascent Africa take upon himself the burden of looking at his fellow African as a man. Nothing more, nothing less. Tribal appellations cause tribal idiosyncrasies. These lead ultimately to vanity and superciliousness and disharmony. A regenerated social order must come. Fanti or Ga, Temne or Mende, Yoruba or Igbo, Bantu or Tuareg, Bubi or Hausa, Jollof or Kru, all are Africans, all are human beings. A man's a man for that. The idea you get from this is that you want a situation where there is no tribal idiosyncrasies, we are all the same. Let's have this flat curve. I mean, you flatten the curve, essentially. Let's flatten the curve of idiosyncrasies and individual, or let me put this, ethnic identity or ethnic uniqueness. Let's flatten the curve. We're all the same. Then suddenly, your own group is not the one that God has specially created to help the rest of us. You think there's no problem with that? If you are a person who celebrates your uniqueness and acknowledge the fact that others are unique, then what you are saying is good. Once you say that every other person should become the same, it says there should be no tribal idiosyncrasies because they lead to vanity and superciliousness. Everybody should be African and human being. Everybody should just be that, not based on tribalism. Now, if you are saying that, how come suddenly God has specially created your own group to rescue the rest of us? How come before we know what's happening, your own group is not the one that is better than other groups? Meanwhile, you say all of us are the same. The more you study Zik, we taught you respect and read. Let me recommend 2 books. You can read this one, 1937, Renascent Africa. Then read Odyssey. It was published in 1970. My Odyssey. That's his own autobiography. Read those 2 books. It's in that one that I was talking about how in my Odyssey was saying how he was under the impression that they had won the Western region. And then the fact that they was not allowed to win now means that the Yoruba people are tribalistic. He did not say they won, no. He said they were under this was his exact words. He said himself and NCNC were under the impression that they were going to have 40 seats out of 80 in Western Parliament in Ibadan. This was in 1951. I was under the impression. And then the people that they were expecting to join you decided to join others. Not that they were part of you. They were in the middle. You are on the left, other groups on the right. Both of you are wooing the people at the center. The people at the center then decide to go to the right. You are on the left. You now say, I was under the impression that they are going to come with me. Not that they are with you. And based on the fact that they went to the other people or the other group, you then go around telling the world that your people are tribalistic. But you are not tribalistic. Meanwhile, God has specially created your own group. I will get to that state creation thing one day, and then we are going to read exactly what plan Zik had for the Eastern minorities. See, this Nigeria that we're all celebrating, everybody has 500 naira notes, we have statesmen. Let's just keep it that way. All this gaslighting people by saying somebody is king of Africa is nonsense. It's not going to work. It's going to win 40 out of 60. Meanwhile, let me tell you what makes this thing crazy. The groups that founded NCNC, many of them were Yoruba groups. So apart from TUC, the union, I'm using TUC because that's what we understand now. Union, apart from union, the trade union, every other group was Yoruba group. Even people that worked with what's this man's name? The first president of NCNC, first chairman now, because first president of NCNC, Herbert Macaulay. People like Kalimoto Pelewura, who was the leader of the market women in Lagos and the one who handed over to Tinubu's mother, Abibatu Mogaji. Alimoto Pelewura was the one leading the market women. Do you know that all the seats in Lagos, 5 seats in Lagos, all the seats were taken by NCNC? But the man who was supposed to be the one leading them eventually showed his hands by overplaying this whole thing of we're all the same. And they turned that party that was supposed to be for all of us, they turned it into an Igbo party as soon as they moved to Enugu. If people are not talking, not because you have some fantastic history, just because you want to be, let's just let sleeping dogs lie. But I said something 2 years ago when they started this thing of insulting Yoruba people and changing history and talking about things they know nothing about. I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to actually discuss the real history. It could have made all of us one color, one race, one speak one language. I don't know if you are trying to be sarcastic, but I'll tell you this. If it made all of you one language, one race, one stuff, it's going to be based on the Igbo identity. The same idea is what you saw in Iransi. The same idea is what Ojukwu was doing. It's the same thing. Well, let's get back to the question now. Let me just answer the question the person asked.